I wonder what is going on in America at the moment, when almost every week I'm reading a story about how another municipality has had to pay up a fine to get their files decrypted from some crypto locker virus. This story was back in May, about crippling ransomware targeting US cities on the rise. There have been 22 known public sector attacks so far in 2019, which would outpace 2018, and that does not take into account that attacks often aren't reported until months or years after they're discovered. I'm not sure, I think you can notice a crypto locker virus pretty quickly, in that they're so blatant that they encrypt all the files on the computer and then display some sort of message on the endpoint systems. At the end of March, Albany quietly admitted it had been hit with ransomware on a Saturday, with a typical choice, as hackers calculate the attack to do more damage when IT staff aren't working. Yeah, this seems to be a bit of a characteristic from some of the things I've read. So I noticed the article from CNN doesn't particularly go into the monetary cost of this, but let's go on a bit to August 2019. Rash of ransomware continues with 13 new victims, most of them schools now. So yeah, targeting schools. Well, it's still a public sector issue. So what have we got? This Ryuk ransomware has been identified as malware used on at least 3 occasions. The victims based on data collected include, quite a long list of schools. Most of them are listed between the states of New York and Connecticut. There's lots of reports about the schools or even cities paying ransoms. So the Rockville School Center District initially received a ransom demand of $176,000. The district's insurance company negotiated with the ransomware operator. Are you kidding me? What? You're negotiating with criminals here? They reduced the payout to $88,000. The school's district paid a deductible of $10,000. What? You're actually funding criminal activity because your IT systems are so bad that you're unable to recover from a ransomware attack. They don't have backups off-site, or they don't have backups stored air-gapped from the network. The leadership of Baltimore City, hit by a ransomware attack in May, recently announced that $6 million of the money needed to cover the city's more than $10 million of ransomware cleanup operation would be pulled from funds earmarked for upkeep of city parks and public facilities. Oh, nice. Yeah, great. I suppose that's where they're going to have to take the money from. So far, the Robinhood ransomware cost the city over $8 million in lost revenue and interest. Yeah, there just seems to be so much of this ransomware happening and the public sector being unable to recover from it without having to pay up. I really do wonder if it's a short-term cost saving, because we have this case from Lake City, Florida. Brian Hawkins was Lake City's IT manager. Now, he was fired after the ransomware hit, and now he's suing against unfair dismissal. The troubles in Lake City began when several employees reported that they had fallen for a phishing attack. Employees at the city's clerk's office, water plant and airport had clicked on an email purportedly from one of their contacts that said something like, "You have an invoice ready." It was personalised and looked legitimate, but it was really a spear phishing attack using what is known as Ryuk triple threat ransomware. Yeah, to be honest, that's just such a common thing I see though. It's an invoice from another contact who's already fallen for a phishing email. These attacks just spread until the attackers hit something that they can actually get a toehold on and start doing some damage to. So one of the emails was cleverly disguised, it even made reference to a prior conversation with a city employee had via email. Yet that just means that someone had given out their credentials to their email box and someone had just gone through it. The attacker had literally just gone through the emails, picked up an earlier email, either forwarded it on or made reference to it. The email had bypassed spam filters and antivirus software, both of which were up to date. So files on the network were eventually encrypted, and after the city's insurer paid 42 Bitcoin, about $460,000, for the key to decrypt the files, it still took weeks to recover, with some files still missing. So Mr. Hawkins received a formal letter stating that recent events, including the cyber attack on Lake City and the inability to quickly recover from this attack, including the failure to have in place a reliable, effective backup system, it said have demonstrated significant weakness with the city's IT department under your leadership. And he was fired. Mr. Hawkins said the city could have been able to recover quickly had it agreed to purchase an off-site cloud backup system, which he had recommended in 2017. city officials balked at the prize and went for backups located on the same server, which the hackers sabotaged. What? Backing up on the same server? That's not a backup at all. What if that server had been destroyed due to a lightning strike or some other spectacular hardware failure? They would still have been in the same situation. So yeah, honestly, I wouldn't blame Mr. Hawkins for suing for wrongful dismissal, given that he has essentially recommended an option that would have saved the city from a ransomware attack. And they've declined it due to the cost. Well, that's their own fault. Couldn't they have at least stored the data on a different server? Well, I suppose that wouldn't have saved them, because if it had been network connected, it could have still been damaged by the ransomware. So yeah, I do have to wonder if it is just a short-term cost-saving measure that these cities and schools are unable to protect themselves against a ransomware attack by not storing data on an air-gapped system. You can't stop people from falling for phishing emails, but it's what happens when people do click on an email. Well, is the antivirus going to stop the ransomware? Or is there going to be a suitable backup of the entire system? And if the answer is no to both those things, well, they've got to look at the option of losing the data or paying to get it back. And I hate the idea of funding crime. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you all later.